Hello everyone. In this video we look at the valence bond theory. Now valence bond theory is slightly different in terms of the explanation of the bonding approach itself in comparison to the Lewis theory or the valence shell electron pair repulsion theory. Now before we get into what is this valence bond theory, let us look at what has been achieved through the Lewis theory and the VSEPR theory. VSEPR is basically the short form for valence shell electron pair repulsion theory. Lewis theory, right? Mostly what has been achieved through the Lewis theory is that we were able to understand how atoms are bonded to each other in a molecule with the help of the Lewis dot structures. So Lewis theory of chemical bonding is based upon the octet achievement. So the atoms when they achieve octet, they will get that stable electronic configuration. That is the basis of the Lewis theory. Of course, we have seen what are the drawbacks or anomalies with the Lewis theory, etc. But the main point is Lewis theory does not provide insights into the other bond parameters, like what, how different bonds are having different enthalpies, how different bonds are having different bond lengths, and even the bond angle which will result in the shape of molecules. This is also not being addressed by the Lewis theory. Valence shell electron pair repulsion theory, the main aspect of this is to explain the bond angles based upon the minimal repulsion between the valence shell electron pairs, and thereby we were able to understand the shapes of the molecules, at least for the molecules where we have molecules including ions also, where we have a central atom surrounded by the peripheral atoms. But the thing is the VSEPR theory does not provide theoretical explanation for the arrangement of the electron pairs in space. So what it says is that in order to have minimal repulsion, it talks about the particular arrangement or configuration. Like if you have 5 valence shell electron pairs, it says that the arrangement should be trigonal bipyramidal. Means what? You have a central atom, there will be 3 pairs of electrons in the plane, one above and one below. So this is the trigonal bipyramidal. But the point is, why trigonal bipyramidal and what is the justification for that? So these theoretical explanations, right, could not be provided by the VSEPR theory. It was able to explain the shapes of the molecules based on the assumptions, but the assumptions could not be backed by the specific explanation. And also the idea of bond enthalpies. Why different? Like say for example, we talk about a hydrogen bond and chlorine bond. Both are single bonds. Hydrogen bond will have a different enthalpy. Chlorine bond will have a different enthalpy. Why is it so? If it is just one pair of electrons that is shared between the hydrogen atom, and similarly one pair of electrons shared between the chlorine atoms, obviously when the bond enthalpy is different, there must be some reason. So that is not being addressed by the VSEPR theory. Even the bond length, like hydrogen bond will have a different length than the chlorine bond. So this also is not being addressed. Now the commonality between Lewis theory and VSEPR theory is that both these theories, right, they are based on the conventional model of the atom. So what do you mean by conventional model of the atom? Where we have a nucleus and electrons, negatively charged particles, they will be revolving around the nucleus. So when you talk about a chemical bond, right, what is it? If you have a bond between atom A and atom B, like you talk about a single bond, there will be a pair of electrons that will be shared between both these atoms. So this is the concept of chemical bond, both in the Lewis theory as well as the VSEPR theory. Now to address these drawbacks or limitations, we have 2 more theories that we will study. So the one that we are going to look at in this particular video is the valence bond theory, which we in short call as VB theory. And there will be one more theory, which is the molecular orbital theory. Both these theories, right, they are not based on the conventional model of the atom. They are based on the quantum mechanical principles. Means they are based on the quantum model of the atom. What is quantum model of the atom? Where we'll talk about the electron to be a wave which is distributed around the nucleus. So we'll talk about orbital as the region. So we have s orbital, we have a p orbital, double shape, then we have a d orbital, double shape. Orbital is what? It's a region where the probability of finding the electron wave is maximum. So this is the concept that we have in the quantum model of the atom. So these two theories, right, they are going to be based on the quantum mechanical principles. There will be some small difference between the two. We will be able to understand it when we go into the details of these two theories. Okay. Now talking about the valence bond theory. So valence bond theory, right, as per this theory, the bond between two atoms, so whenever we say there is a bond between two atoms that is formed, it will be formed when two electrons with opposite spins, like say for example one is having a clockwise, other is having anti-clockwise. Two electrons with opposite spins, they get paired, and the pairing, right, here it is not as per the conventional model of the atom. The pairing of electrons would happen through the quantum mechanical principles, means quantum model of the atom. So as per the quantum model of the atom, when we say electron means what, it is basically the orbital, so where you have electron wave density distributed. Okay, so here the chemical bonding will be happening to what, the overlapping of the two atomic orbitals. So when the atomic orbital of one will overlap with the atomic orbital of the other. So what is this overlap? We will discuss as we go into the details of it. Okay, so one orbital from each of these atoms, right, they will overlap, means they will say there is a valence bond that is formed, or the bond as per the valence bond theory. Okay, so here the chemical bonding, right, is through what? It is through the overlapping. It is through what? The overlapping of atomic orbitals. So when we see a bond, means there will be overlap of the atomic orbitals. That overlapping region, right, is going to be the indicator for the strength of the bond. So the extent of overlap will decide the strength of the covalent bond. So when you have greater overlap, means what? Stronger is the bond. So when the overlapping between the two atomic orbitals is more, means the particular bond formed will be what? It will be a stronger bond, like that. When the overlapping is less, the bond that is formed will be a weaker bond. Okay, so what is this overlapping of the atomic orbitals? We need to understand that. Okay, so what do you mean by the overlapping of the atomic orbitals? If you look at generally the atomic orbitals, right, atomic orbitals, they'll have shape. S orbital will be what? Spherical in shape. P will be dumbbell, D will be double dumbbell, and F will be even more diffused. So if you look at the overlapping, right, here we are going to discuss about what are the different modes of overlapping that is possible. Okay, so generally the line where the nucleus of the two atoms are present, that line we will be calling as the internuclear axis. What we call it as internuclear axis, and conventionally we will take it as what? Z axis. Okay, so here you can see what we are discussing in these two examples is what we will be calling as head-on overlap. What is this kind of overlap going to be called as? Head-on overlap. Okay, so see here, the pz orbital means what? The lobes will be along the z axis of one atom. So here you will have the nucleus 1, and pz of the another atom, here we will have the nucleus 2. They both will overlap along the internuclear axis. So where the overlapping is happening? Along the z axis or the internuclear axis. Okay, so you see this is the overlapping part, and this will describe the chemical bond. So here what you see is the in phase overlap, which we also call as the positive overlap. Now when you look at electron wave, right, like this is not like our normal wave, but you can think of it like this: one crest and one trough. So if you indicate the positive to be one lobe and negative to be other lobe, when the positive part and positive part they overlap, it's like what? The crest and another crest overlapping. Similarly, a trough and another trough can overlap. This kind of overlapping is what we call as in phase overlap. You will study about it in the waves and oscillation chapter in physics. Look at the other side, which we are calling as out of phase overlap or negative overlap. So here what is happening? A positive lobe is overlapping with the negative. So what is going to happen here? There will be cancellation, isn't it? So what will be happening? Cancellation. So if you have a crest coming from one side and trough coming from other side, right, what is going to happen? They both will cancel or nullify each other. Okay, so which means this negative overlap, right, is not going to result in the chemical bonding. Only the positive overlap will be resulting in the chemical bonding. Okay, Now we look at the other one. You see here the pz orbital, the dumbbells will be along the z axis, and of one atom, and the s orbital of the other atom. So you can see here the positive lobe is overlapping with positive. This is what in phase overlap. This will result in the chemical bonding. Whereas if you see here, right, the negative lobe is overlapping with positive. Here there will be cancellation. So this is not going to result in chemical bonding. Now since the overlapping is happening along the internuclear axis, this overlapping will be called as what? Head-on overlap. Okay, so we can also call it as axial overlap. Okay, after some time we are going to talk about what are the two different types of bonds as per the valence bond theory, right? We are going to talk about the chemical bonds in two different categories. Then we will be able to discuss a little bit more on this particular head-on overlap or the axial overlap. Okay, so this is about one mode of overlapping. Let us look at the other mode of overlapping. This mode of overlapping is called as the sidewise overlap or the lateral or sideways overlap. So what is this lateral or sideways overlap? You see here the axis is what? The axis where the nucleus will be present is z-axis. That is what we conventionally take. Okay. Now you see here the nucleus 1 and nucleus 2. Here the px orbital of one atom and px orbital of other atom. You see what is happening? They are overlapping what? Sidewise. The overlapping is not along the internuclear axis. The overlapping cloud, electron cloud, overlapping cloud, right? That is not along the internuclear axis. It is what? Above and below. So sidewise they are overlapping. For this px orbital of one atom and px orbital of other atom, they can have what? Sidewise overlap. This is in phase because positive are merging, negative is merging. Out of phase means what? Positive and negative will try to merge. Here there will be cancellation. Here also the negative and positive merging. So this is not going to result in the bonding. Only the in phase overlapping of the atomic orbitals will result in the bonding. You see another example, py orbital of one atom and py orbital of other atom. Here also you can see that lateral overlap, positive and positive overlap, negative overlap. But this is what you see here. What is it? Positive and negative. This is what? Out of phase. Out of phase means what? This is not going to result in the chemical bond formation. So what do you call this kind of overlap as? Sidewise overlap or the lateral overlap. By now itself you would have understood that what are the two different categories of chemical bonds we are going to study in the valence bond theory. Okay, so one obviously will be because of the head-on overlap or the axial overlap. The other is going to be because of the sidewise or the lateral overlap. Okay, so we'll discuss about that as we go into the discussion, but let us look at what is the other scenario. Like we can have atomic orbitals that cannot overlap at all because of mainly the difference in the orientation. So some atomic orbitals, they will not be able to overlap at all because of what? Difference in the orientation. What do you mean by that? So look at it. We have a px orbital of one atom and py orbital of other atom. Px will be, the lobes are along the x-axis. Here the lobes are along the y-axis. So they will not be able to overlap because of the difference in orientation. Px can overlap. Py can overlap. But Px and Py, they cannot overlap. Okay, so this is what we call as the zero overlap. Zero overlap is not going to result in the bonding. Similarly, you see we have talked about a pz and s orbital overlapping because pz is like what? This along the z-axis, and s orbital, they can overlap. So s orbital and pz orbital, they can overlap. We have seen this in the head-on mode of overlapping, correct? But if you have a px means what? The lobes will be along the x-axis, and yes, the nucleus is present, the nucleus of the second atom is present along the z-axis, right? So you see the overlapping is not going to be effective here. So the px of one atom and s orbital, or py of one atom and s orbital, they will not be able to have a proper overlap. Only pz and s orbital, they can have a proper overlap. So this is what we will call as the zero overlap situations, where because of the difference in orientation, they will not be able to lead to the formation of an chemical bond. Okay, now we will look at what are these two categories of bonds that we'll talk as per the valence bond theory. So what are these two different types of bonds? If there is a covalent bond formed, by the head-on overlap. By the way, we can also call it as what? End-to-end overlap. So why end-to-end overlap? We can see if one pz orbital and another atom pz orbital, right? They are overlapping. You see, what is it? This overlapping is what? End. So one orbital end, another orbital end. That is why it is called as what? End-to-end overlap. And this overlap will be happening along the internuclear axis. The overlapping of the bonding orbitals will be happening along the internuclear axis. So this is called as what? A head-on overlap or the axial overlap. Already we talked about it. So such a bond, right, that is formed because of the head-on overlap or the axial overlap, we can also call it as what? End-to-end overlap is going to be called as a sigma bond. Okay, so sigma bond, we can have different ways of having a sigma bond. An s orbital of one atom can overlap with another s orbital. That will give us a sigma bond. An s orbital will overlap with a pz orbital of another atom. That can also give us a sigma bond. A pz orbital of one atom can overlap pz orbital of another atom. That can also give us what? Sigma bond. We'll look at these specific examples. So take a look at here. Atom 1 will have the nucleus at the center. Atom 2 will have nucleus at the center. These two overlap along the internuclear axis. You see here, that is the overlapping cloud. So what is it? This is what we call as the SS sigma bond. Okay, so sigma bond is the type of bond, and sigma bond is happening because of what? S orbital of one atom overlapping with the s orbital of the other atom. So here both these half-filled s orbitals, when they come and overlap, right, they will be able to lead to the formation of the bond, and that is when we will say there is a pairing of electrons happening. Okay, so normally as per the conventional model of the atom, the conventional model of chemical bonding, Lewis or VSE pair theory, we will say what? Each of these atoms are contributing one electron, and that will be shared. That pair will be shared like that. Here that sharing concept is not going to come. Here what is the concept that is involved? The atomic orbital carrying the electron from atom A and atomic orbital carrying the electron from atom B, they both atomic orbitals will overlap, because now we are talking about electron not as a particle. Electron as what? This entire region represents the orbital. Orbital is what? The region where the probability of finding the electron wave is what? Maximum. Correct. So this is how the sigma bond, because of the SS overlap, is going to be formed. Now we can have a sigma bond because of the overlapping of the s orbital of one atom and p orbital of the other atom. How it is going to happen? Look at it. So atom 1 will have the nucleus, atom 2 will have nucleus here. So s orbital of one atom and the pz orbital of the other atom, they both will overlap. You see here, this is the region of overlap. So both these half-filled orbitals, right? One half-filled orbital coming from the atom 1, s orbital. Another half-filled orbital, p orbital, coming from the pz, actually. pz coming from the atom 2. They both will overlap. That is what will be the sp sigma. We can have a pp overlapping also. Look at it. So pz orbital from one atom, pz orbital from another atom. So this is the internuclear axis. Okay, so nucleus 1, nucleus 2. So we'll see here there is an overlapping along the z axis or the internuclear axis. Okay, so this is what will be the sigma bond because of the overlapping of the pz orbital of one atom and pz orbital of the other atom. Okay, now the other type of bond we talked about is the pi bond. Okay, so pi bond, right, will be because of what? Because of the sidewise or the lateral overlap. So in the formation of pi bond, atomic orbitals overlap in such a way that their axes remain parallel to each other and perpendicular to the internuclear axis. Means what? If the internuclear axis is z axis, remember what is it that we discussed? A px orbital of one atom and px orbital of another atom, or py and py also. So you see here both these lobes are what? Parallel. So that is what is the condition. The axes of the orbitals must remain parallel to each other. You see here px and py, px and px, they are parallel, and they are also what? Perpendicular to the internuclear axis. So the overlapping is going to happen sidewise. You see here you have a plus plus, imagine minus minus. So there is an overlapping of the orbital cloud above the axis as well as below the axis. If you try to represent them after the overlapping, right, you see here what is it going to be? It's going to be like what? A saucer type. It's going to be like what? It's a saucer type. So you'll have a electron cloud above the axis as well as below the axis. So due to the sidewise overlapping, right, there will be two saucer type charge clouds. One is above and one is below. So this is the internuclear axis or the z axis. the clouds will be above the axis as well as below the axis. So this is what is the pi bond that will happen because of the sidewise or the lateral overlap. So a px orbital of one atom and px orbital of another atom, they can give us the pi bond. Py orbital of one atom and py orbital of another atom, they can also give us the pi bond. We can also have pi bonds formed by the d orbitals. So this is what we are discussing, right? This is the p pi p pi. Why the word p pi p pi? This is a convention that we generally follow. So it represents what? The pi bond formed between the p orbitals, p orbital of one atom and p orbital of another atom. We can have a p pi d pi, means what? The overlapping is between p orbital of one atom and the d orbital of other atom. You can see here, this is the internuclear axis, this is z axis. The overlapping is giving rise to what? Electron cloud above, electron cloud below. We can also have d pi d pi. So you see here, this is the internuclear axis or z axis. There is a overlapping that is giving rise to electron cloud above, electron cloud below. Okay, so you can see here also it will be like what? One saucer above and one saucer below. Okay, so this is why we will be calling it as what? The pi bond. Okay, so these are the two types of bonding that can happen as per the valence bond theory. So one we will call it as a sigma bond because of the head-on overlap along the internuclear axis. Other will be the pi bond that will happen because of the lateral or the side. Now we look at the summary of comparison between the sigma bond and the pi bond. So sigma bond, as we are discussing, right, it is because of the head-on overlap. We can see s orbital of one atom and s orbital of other atom, they can have a head-on overlap sigma bond. Similarly, we can have a s orbital of one atom and p orbital of the other atom, they can also form a sigma bond. pp, they can also form a sigma bond. Pz of one atom and pz orbital of other atom. Okay. Pi bond on the other hand is formed by the sidewise overlap or the lateral overlap. So if you take the internuclear axis to be the z axis, then px orbital of one atom can overlap with px of other sidewise. Py of one atom can overlap with py of another sidewise. Okay. So sigma bond essentially consists of what? One electron cloud. You see the entire electron cloud is along the internuclear axis. Whereas a pi bond, right, will have two saucer electron cloud. One is above and one is below. So this is the fundamental difference between a sigma bond and a pi bond. Now there is also one more difference about which we will be more interested to talk in the case of organic chemistry. So when we go to organic chemistry, right, especially these compounds having a pi bond, they can give rise to what we call as geometrical isomerism. So what is the phenomena that they can give rise to? Geometrical isomerism. Now, what is geometrical isomerism and all that you will be learning in the organic chemistry, but just the idea of this, right, we will get it from here. With respect to sigma bond, right, free rotation along the sigma bond is possible. We will see what it means. Whereas if it is a pi bond, we cannot have free rotation with respect to that axis. So you have the z axis, the bond can be rotated up with respect to z axis if it is a sigma bond. Pi bond means what? It cannot be rotated. So we'll say restricted rotation. What is it that we'll say? Restricted rotation. Because of this, we will be getting the phenomena of geometrical isomerism. What it is, we will be learning in detail in organic chemistry, but let us just look at here what is this rotation. Okay, so look at here. So you see what is happening, the bond, that sigma bond, right, we are able to easily rotate, isn't it? So we are able to easily rotate with respect to sigma bond. So that is what we mean to say here. The rotation is happening with respect to what? Z axis. Whereas if you look at a pi bond, right, you can see we taken two molecules where we have a pi bond. So the pi bond, right, so you see what you will have is that, you know, there will be saucer above, saucer below. Rotation will not be possible. Okay, so in sigma bond, the rotation, free rotation will be possible, because if you try to rotate in pi bond, means what is going to happen, you can see that will be the the two saucer links, right, will be getting what? Broken. So that is the reason why the free rotation will not be possible in the case of the pi bond. Only in the sigma bond case we will be having the free rotation. Okay, as a result of this, right, we will be able to get the phenomena of geometrical isomerism. About that we will discuss in detail when we go to the organic chemistry. Now the extent of overlap, because as such the strength of the bond as per the valence bond theory depends upon the extent of overlap. If you consider the sigma bond, right, the overlapping of orbital takes to a large extent because it is along the nuclear axis. The overlapping will be quite significant, whereas in case of pi bond the sideways overlap will not be to a large extent. So in comparison to the pi bond, right, what will be the sigma bond will be much stronger. Sigma bond is stronger in comparison to the pi bond, where in case of pi bond there will be only what? The overlapping to a small extent. In case of sigma bond the overlapping will be to a large extent. That is the reason why the bond energy, right, if you want to compare the bond energy, sigma bond will have a higher bond energy than pi bond. So whenever a bond is formed between two atoms, the bond is going to be a sigma bond always first. Means what? If you have atom A and atom B, they are forming a bond. The first bond they would form will be always a sigma bond, because that is what is going to be the stronger one. Always the first is what? You will have the overlapping of the atomic orbitals happening along the internuclear axis. Now when the pi bonds will be formed? Pi bonds will be formed when there are multiple bonds. So when there is a formation of multiple bonds between two atoms, right, pi bonds are going to be formed always in addition to sigma bond. Means imagine you have a double bond. So in that the first bond to be formed between the two atoms is what? It is a sigma bond. The second bond will be a pi bond, like that. If you have triple bond between two atoms, the first bond to be formed will be what? Because of the overlapping along the internuclear axis. Second bond will be a pi bond. Third bond also will be a pi bond. So we can look at this in case of the maximum number of bonds between two atoms. Remember what we said while discussing about the maximum number of bonds formed between two atoms in Lewis theory case. We said the maximum number of bonds is what? 3 between any two atoms. So think about it. If the sigma bond is formed because of overlapping along the internuclear axis, which is the z axis, and let us say the px orbital of one atom is overlapping with the px, that is the sidewise. So we will get what? 1 pi bond. Similarly, let us assume that the py orbital of this atom is overlapping with py. That will form another pi bond. You see, there is an electron cloud along the z axis because of sigma bond. Electron cloud which is spread along the x. Electron cloud spread along the y. So this gives electronic repulsion or electron cloud repulsion to any more possible sharing or rather no possible overlap of the atomic orbitals between atom A and atom B, because already we have electron cloud along the z axis, we have electron cloud along the x axis, we have electron cloud along the y axis. That is the reason why the maximum number of bonds to be formed between any two atoms is what? 3. In that, first bond will be always sigma bond. The second and third bonds will be what? Pi bonds. So this is how the different types of covalent bonds will be formed between two atoms. Now we'll see how the valence bond theory will be able to explain the bond parameters. Remember, now one of the things that we have said in the beginning of the discussion about the valence bond theory is that the valence bond theory is able to explain some of the bond parameters that were missing in the VSEPR theory or the Lewis theory. So we'll see how the valence bond theory can explain the difference in bond lengths between the H2 molecule and the Cl2 molecule. So if we look at the H2 molecule, right, what is it? It is because of the overlapping of 1s orbitals of both these hydrogen atoms. So this is what, obviously the first bond means what? Sigma bond. So here in case of H2 molecule, the bond is formed between what? The overlapping of 1s orbital of one hydrogen and 1s orbital of other hydrogen. Whereas when we go to the Cl2, each chlorine, right, what is the outermost electronic structure? It is 3s2 3p5. Okay, so means one p orbital will be half filled. So this chlorine 1 p orbital, so which we will take it as what? Pz. Okay, so this is the chlorine 1, and this is what? 3pz orbital. another chlorine. For it also, what is it? The 3pz orbital. So these two orbitals are overlapping along the internuclear axis. This is also what sigma bond. But this is formed between what? The 3pz orbital of one chlorine and 3pz orbital of the other chlorine. Now the thing is, when we talk about the strength of the bond, what we said, the strength of the bond will depend upon the extent of overlap. Means here this is what 1s overlapping with 1s. The overlapping extent will be definitely different from the overlapping extent of 3pz and 3pz. So that is how the VB theory is able to explain the difference in bond energies for different bonds. So here the overlapping extent of 1s orbital and another 1s orbital will be different from the overlapping extent of the 3pz orbital and another 3pz orbital. Not only that, bond length. So if you have 1s orbitals, right, they will be closer to the nucleus. We can see it from the radial electron wave distribution function. This is something that we have talked about in the structure of the atom. So in atomic structure, right, we talked about what is this radial distribution function of different orbitals as per the quantum model of the atom. So looking at the radial distance, right, a 1s orbital distance spread will be different from a 3pz orbital. Obviously, when the principal quantum number is increasing, means what? The orbitals will be farther and farther from the nucleus. So as a result, what happens? Here it is the bond between a 1s orbital and another 1s orbital overlapping. So this distance between the nuclei, right, will be different from the bond that is formed because of the 3pz orbital of one atom and 3pz orbital of the other atom. So this distance will be what? Is going to be different from what we have in H2. So basically the nature of orbitals involved, what is it? The nature of orbitals involved in the overlapping, right, is the primary reason for why different bonds are having different bond energies and also different bond lengths. So this is how VB theory was able to explain why different bonds are having different bond enthalpies and different bond lengths. Now the same analogy, right, is also sort of applied to explain the directional nature of these bonds. Generally what we say is covalent bonds or directional bonds. Ionic bonds will be non-directional. So when we look at these shapes of the molecules, right, VSEPR theory predicts that, depending upon what is the total number of valence shell electron pairs, we will be able to give an arrangement for the minimal repulsion. But the problem with the VSEPR theory is that theoretical explanation was actually missing. Now VB theory, it tries to explain based on the idea that if you have, imagine a central atom, okay, so when the central atom is forming multiple bonds, it is going to use different orbitals, correct? Central atom, it will be using its orbitals. When it is using orbitals, orbitals will have different orientation. S orbital means what? It will be spherically distributed. Px means it will be along the x-axis. Py means it will be along the y-axis. Pz means it will be along the z-axis. So the idea is that since these orbitals are having different orientation, when they form, right, when they form bonds, they will be able to give rise to the directional nature of the bonds. So these orbitals are having directional nature, means Px is along the x-axis, Py is along the y-axis, Pz is along the z-axis. So the directional nature of the orbitals would result in different orientation of the bonds. Means if there is a bond formed with the Px orbital, it will be spread along which direction? X-axis. If there is a bond formed with the Py orbital, it will be spread along the y-axis. If there is a bond formed with the Pz orbital, it will be spread along the z-axis, like that. Okay. So the idea is that since that central atom will use different orbitals which have got specific directions in orientation, the bonds formed by these orbitals also will be having what? The same specific orientation. And that is what is going to give rise to shape of the molecule. So this is the original concept of how people thought that the VB theory can explain the directional nature of these covalent bonds. But there is a big problem with that. Okay, we'll see what is the problem, and also we'll see what is the modification that has been done for the valence bond theory to overcome this. This basic explanation, right, could not even explain the shapes of some very simple and obvious molecules like methane, CH4. We have learnt in the discussion of the VSEPR theory what is the shape of the methane molecule? It is what? Tetrahedral. Carbon is sitting at the center of the tetrahedron, 4 hydrogens are at the corners of the tetrahedron. Okay, so this is what is the shape of the methane. It is even proven experimentally by using the diffraction methods, etc. But the thing is, the VB theory as such, when we try to apply, so look at it, carbon, right? Normally, what is the electronic arrangement of carbon? 1s2, 2s2, 2p2. Totally 6 electrons are there for carbon. So it has to form 4 bonds. See, there is one half-filled px orbital, one half-filled py orbital. That's it. Other orbitals are actually what? Filled. But it has to form 4 bonds, means as per the VB theory, right? It can only form bonds when it is having what? Half-filled orbitals, correct? It can only form bonds when it is having half-filled orbitals. Only they can be used for the bonding. So what would happen before carbon will engage in bonding is excitation. So one of the electron from the 2s, this is the valence. The excitation is happening from where? Valence shell only, within the valence shell. 2s is also in the valence shell. The empty 2pz is also in the valence shell. One of the electron will get excited by absorbing some energy. This is what we call as the excited arrangement of carbon. This is actually unstable. This is unstable, but why is it exciting? Because now you can see it will be having how many half-filled orbitals? It is having how many? 4 half-filled orbitals. So because of these 4 half-filled orbitals, right, it can form how many bonds? It can form 4 bonds, because as per the VB theory, every one half-filled orbital will be able to give rise to 1 bond, correct? Now if you as such try to apply the VB theory here, right, so what is it that we see? Carbon, we have the 2s orbital which is half-filled, then we have 2px, then we have 2py, then we have 2pz. Now if the s orbital of carbon is overlapping with s orbital of one hydrogen, the px orbital is overlapping with another s orbital. So for hydrogen always it is what? S orbital only. Py is overlapping with s orbital of another hydrogen. Pz is overlapping with s orbital of another hydrogen. What we would generally expect if we just go by this kind of an representation, what we generally expect is 3 of the carbon hydrogen bonds will be similar or identical, because they are happening between what? A px orbital of carbon and hydrogen, py orbital of carbon and hydrogen, pz orbital of carbon and hydrogen. But the 4th bond should be different. Why? Because it is happening due to the overlapping of the 2s orbital of the carbon and the 1s orbital of the hydrogen. So 3 bonds are because of the p orbitals, 1 bond is formed because of the s orbital. So we expect that 3 bonds will be of one nature and another bond will be of different. And even when it comes to bond angles, right, what is the angle between the x-axis and y-axis? We expect it to be what? 90. What is the angle between the y-axis and z-axis? 90. So we expect the angle between a carbon hydrogen bonds will be what? 90. We expect that the angle between the carbon hydrogen bonds is what? 90. But what is actually found is totally different, isn't it? In case of the methane, all the 4 carbon hydrogen bonds are exactly identical. All the 4 carbon hydrogen bonds are exactly identical. And the bond angles were found to be what we have discussed in the case of the valence shell electron pair repulsion theory. What is it? Approximately 109.5 degrees. So this is something that the VB theory as such is not able to explain. And there came the modification. The modification has come by the attempt of Pauling, where he has introduced the concept of hybridization. So hybridization is a modification to the valence bond theory. So what is this concept of hybridization? If you are thinking in very crude terms, right, think of it, okay. So you see what is this? This is a mixer. In this you have put some fruits, just mix it. Simple, okay. So what is it? If you have atomic orbitals, the atomic orbitals, right, will not be able to have effective overlapping. This is the basic hypothesis. So normally the atomic orbitals will not be able to give us effective overlapping. That is because of various reasons. We will discuss about it when we go into the session on the hybridization. But here we will just get the idea of what is the hybridization. Okay, the atomic orbitals, for some reasons, they are not able to give effective overlapping. That is the hypothesis. and hence they combine to form a new set of equivalent orbitals. We'll say identical orbitals. So when we say combine, this combination is what we are calling as the hybridization. What is it? So it is like, we are sort of mixing the atomic orbitals to give rise to what? The hybrid orbital. So we are going to get what? New identical orbitals or equivalent orbitals, and these orbitals are going to be called as what? Hybrid orbitals. And the hybrid orbitals will be formed purely for what? For the bond formation. Whenever we have these atoms which are forming multiple bonds, right, they will be able to form multiple bonds by using what? The hybrid orbitals and not the pure atomic orbitals. Why this hybridization happens and how the hybridization is able to explain the bond angles, because the VB theory as such, right, is not able to explain the concept of bond angles in its own form. So we'll see how the hybridization will be able to explain the bond angles when we go into the discussion about the hybridization. Okay, but what is the basic idea? It is like, you're mixing the atomic orbitals to give new identical orbitals. Those orbitals are going to be called as what? Hybrid orbitals. Now the bond formation is not going to be because of the original pure atomic orbitals, but it will be because of the hybrid orbitals. We'll talk about it in the video on hybridization.